Now, before the segment, I had to cut Karolina off, but I want to let you finish your thought, Karolina. Go for it.
For sure. I was just going to say that you shouldn't take it as an insult when somebody tells you that you're privileged. It's more so that it's just realization. Even if you work hard for something, you probably had privileges that other people didn't. So your responsibility as a human being is to realize and understand the privileges that you have and advocate for people that don't have it. So don't take it as an offense. Just when somebody's telling you this, it's like, oh, okay, maybe I do. Maybe there's an aspect of it that did propel me where I am today. That's not for everybody.
Is that like the saying, play the cards you were dealt kind of thing?
Yeah, kind of. Yeah. So like you had certain cards, you played strategically, you got to the winning plays, but maybe somebody had like terrible cards to begin with.
Right. I guess same goes for pretty privilege, right? I guess that's why I brought it up. Now, one point I do want to make was on Megan Fox. Let's take a look here. So as a teenager, Megan Fox was catapulted to fame with back-to-back roles that she landed precisely because of how she looked. But the experience definitely wasn't positive, and it wasn't just on set. It was every day of my life all the time, with every project I worked on and every producer I worked with, she said. But when she started speaking out, she experienced a lot of pushback, which she attributes to not being a sympathetic victim. I wasn't allowed to be a human because I was a topic of conversation and gossip and punchlines. I was essentially in hiding for several years of my life. I don't know if the psychological breakdown was strictly related to being objectified, she said. It was more related to just being dehumanized and criticized and judged constantly. So on one hand, the way that she looked launched her career. Now on the other, people didn't want to hear that she was struggling, especially if that struggle was because of her good looks. So is there some validity in how Megan Fox would feel that, I guess, she's being dehumanized and criticized because of how she looks?
I think that was also like a testament of the time. This was before like the Me Too movement and everything, when women were highly sexualized on television. And I've been in spots before where it's very difficult to get people to take you seriously.
Is there something to be said, the difference between male and female for pretty privilege? Like, is there a big difference?
I think in general, misogyny just works in various ways. Males are typically, thought at as smarter than women are just in general. So it's easier for people to generalize and be like, women are dumb. They're just pretty, that's what they need to be. And put them on a pedestal that upholds that, and they don't want to hear anything else that contradicts that.
Right.
Well, I was talking to you about that study as well. That was talking about like kind of inequality in higher education. And they did a study where people would work one-on-one with students in person. When they were working with attractive females in person, they would do better. When they switched over to virtual, their grades would actually drop. There was no change for men, though. So they were determining that like attractiveness is a quality that's held in higher regard with females, whereas men, it tends to be a little bit more behavioral.
Right. I guess there are some negatives that Megan Fox brought up, right, about being treated poorly on set, and not just on set, in her everyday life. Oh, you only got in these roles because of how you looked. And it just, I guess, criticizes her ability to act, like you mentioned even before the show.
It's uncomfortable, too, when people are talking about your body, and there's a whole commentary, right?
You're being judged all the time. What are some other negatives to pretty privilege that maybe people don't see right out the get-go?
I think in general, pretty privilege just gets you to a certain point, and then people are very quick to turn on you. There's only, for example, so much tolerance that can somebody give you for you to not fit within the kind of like image that they uphold of you. And, like, for example, some men might want to even have like sexual advances for women. And then if you don't return that, that puts you in a risk situation as well. But that could be linked to, like, let's say getting a promotion because of your good looks. But that was kind of a subconscious thing that they thought of this entire time.
Interesting. Chris, your thoughts?
Yeah, I think if it's like very apparent, for example, at a workplace that someone got a job just because they looked a certain way, I think it's then you can end up like pitting them against everyone else. Like, oh, so-and-so just got the job because they look a certain way. And then it's like you almost get isolated in the workplace, for example, because you got a job just because of how you looked or you got in the door. And then you kind of have to prove yourself with actual competency after. And so I see like kind of the dark side, like even like the Megan Fox quote, like the challenges that it.
And even if you're competent, like sometimes can be undermined by your looks, right? Because people are like, oh, well, she's just pretty. And that could be even between women, not only men.
I will say that I find a lot of, from a guy's perspective, females, I have had females say to me, oh, she's just pretty, that's why she's there. I've seen that. So there's definitely some, there's some honesty to that.
That's probably more of an issue with you that you feel that way.
Absolutely.
Well, okay, so do, like, I guess, is that a problem? I mean, it's clear that there is a shift in that pretty women do get some sort of advantage, but
I think that's like as we were talking about as well, like even like the service industry, for example, waitresses, like there's certain industries where those people do tend to get the jobs. They do tend to get tipped better. I don't want to bring up the restaurant's name, but Hooters.
We'll get into this in just a moment, but when we come back, how can we shape other people's perspectives on us aside from looks?
I'ma rule the world, yeah.